Chosen one, there is a light forming within you that cannot be turned off by criticism, cannot be dimmed by misunderstanding, and cannot be bought with shallow praise. This light, though soft to the eye, is ancient in nature. It is the result of years, maybe lifetimes, of internal refinement, a quiet chiseling of your character, a sacred breaking of illusions, a deep remembering of your name before the world named you anything else. You are no longer walking into rooms hoping to be recognized. You are walking into spaces already anchored in who you are. And that anchoring speaks louder than introductions. This glow isn't the glow of the performer or the ego feeding on approval. It is the glow of someone who knows why they're still here, of someone who has sat in silence and made peace with their own voice, of someone who has wept over their failures and yet stood back up, not with arrogance, but with a certain nobility that suffering refines. You carry a light, not because you chased the sun, but because you learned to become it. That shift has made all the difference. You are no longer desperate to be loved. You are love-wearing form. You are no longer seeking a platform. You are the message itself, walking in human rhythm. And it shows, chosen one. It shows in your eyes, no longer restless but deep. It shows in your posture, no longer hurried but deliberate. It shows in your silence, no longer awkward but full. People can't name it, but they feel it. They feel the calm certainty in the way you occupy space. They feel the grace in how you don't compete for validation. They feel the strength in how you no longer shrink to fit their expectations. And because of that, you are beginning to draw attention. Not the cheap kind, not the hollow kind, but the kind that arrives when someone stumbles upon something rare. You are becoming magnetic not through strategy, but through sincerity. There's no blueprint for it. There's no guidebook. It's not something you crafted. It's something you allowed. You stopped covering your flame with filters. You stopped silencing your truth for comfort. You stopped apologizing for your vision. And in doing so, your glow began to rise. Not to dazzle, but to guide. You are not becoming more visible because you asked to be seen. You are becoming more visible because truth always rises. And in this rising, others begin to recalibrate. They begin to question what it means to show up fully. They begin to wonder why their own light feels dim next to yours. Not because you shine harder, but because you shine honestly, and that honesty is now transforming you into a lighthouse for those still lost at sea. So hold that light, chosen one. Don't dress it up. Don't water it down. Don't make it prettier for those who are not ready to look into its fullness. Let it be what it is. Let it offend what it needs to offend. Let it awaken what it's meant to awaken. This glow, this presence, this anchored identity is not for applause, it is for alignment. And you are aligned now, inwardly, eternally, undeniably. Chosen one, you never asked to be admired, but purpose has a strange way of becoming visible. Not because it tries, but because it carries a frequency that cannot be hidden. The frequency of someone who has nothing to prove, but everything to give. That is what they're responding to now. Not a face, not a posture, but the resonance of soul that flows through your every move. The quiet clarity that's been forged in the fire of isolation, in the weight of your unseen efforts, in the silence of the rooms where no one applauded you, but heaven watched in full. You walk differently now, not because you've practiced a new gait, but because the burdens that once bent your spine have fallen off. The chains that once wrapped your thoughts have snapped. The fog that once clouded your heart has cleared. And from that clearing, a presence has emerged, steady, rare, dignified. You do not demand to be noticed, yet all eyes turn. You do not shout your worth, yet all hearts lean in. And they wonder, some aloud, some in silence. What is it about this one? It is purpose, chosen one. It is not showmanship. It is not performance. It is not vanity. It is purpose wearing skin. You now carry the sound of someone who has heard their assignment. And when a soul hears its assignment, it vibrates differently. There's no more desperation. There's no more hustle. There's no more reaching for scraps of attention to feel valid. Because now you know you are already seen, already sent, already sealed. The applause you once longed for has been replaced by something deeper. The echo of eternity affirming, yes, this is the path. Walk in it. That affirmation, though invisible, becomes visible through you. And others can't help but take notice. They are drawn, not in lust or fantasy, but in longing. longing for what they see in you. Not the clothes, not the face, but the peace, the unapologetic existence, the way you no longer beg for space, you command it by how you carry your spirit. And this draws flattery from lips unprepared to explain what they feel. They call it confidence, they call it charm. But you know what it is? It is God's whisper turned into posture. And even as the flattery comes, genuine or misguided, you do not bow to it. You are not flattered by flattery. You are rooted in truth. You don't absorb compliments to inflate. You let them pass like petals in the wind, grateful but untouched. Because you know who you are. Because you remember who you were. Because you've seen what it took to walk in this identity, and no passing admiration can compare to the cost it took to get here. So walk, chosen one. Let the attention come and go. Let the praise arrive and pass. Let the world say what it wants. You are not moved by eyes anymore. You are moved by assignment. And when a soul walks in its divine rhythm, it does not seek the stage. It becomes one, not to perform, but to remind the world of what light looks like in human form. You have become that reminder. And the world, even in its confusion, cannot help but take notice. Chosen one, you've entered a strange and sacred season where flattery has begun to follow you, not like a shadow, but like soft wind chasing the sun. You do not ask for praise, yet it arrives like morning light through opened windows. It drapes itself over you in smiles, in whispers, in gestures of wonder you did not orchestrate. People are speaking about you now in ways they can barely explain. Not because you've become louder, but because you've become more real. There is a rhythm in your walk, a silence in your gaze, a certainty in your presence that unsettles shallow minds and awakens sleeping hearts. And the words they say? They are not always about you. They are about what they remember when they're near you. Some call it confidence, others call it magnetism, but in truth, it is the quiet radiance of one who is no longer acting. You've stopped playing roles. You've stopped wearing faces. You've stopped adjusting your posture to be palatable for those who've never known what to do with truth. And now that unfiltered presence flows through you like breath. You are not trying to be seen. You simply are. And that is exactly what is so rare. You are not performing for affection. You are not shrinking for approval. You are standing, not arrogantly, not defensively, but rightfully. And people don't know how to respond to that kind of groundedness, so they praise you in the only language they know, flattery. They speak of your aura, of your calm, of your focus. They speak of your eyes as if they hold galaxies, of your voice as if it calms storms. And yes, these words may feel strange. You've never relied on compliments. You've never needed attention. But here it is, following you like gravity follows mass. Do not resist it, chosen one. But do not drink it either. These words are not meant to fill you. They are reflections of the impact you have when you are full without needing. And they don't always understand what they're saying. What they're truly praising is alignment. They feel the integrity between your soul and your speech, between your spirit and your silence. That congruence is so rare, so foreign, that it feels supernatural. You've become a reminder, a mirror, a sacred disruption. Not because you've demanded to be, but because you've stayed true in a world that abandoned its own truth. And those who encounter you, especially women, often do not yet have the vocabulary for what they're experiencing. So they flatter. They adorn you in words like beautiful, powerful, wise, alluring. But beneath those phrases is a deeper ache, a deeper awe. They are not just complimenting your form. They are praising the fact that for once they are standing near someone real. And realness now feels like a rare gem. You've become the kind of presence that forces people to realize how false they've been. That is both unsettling and exhilarating to them. So yes, let the flattery come, let the awe rise, let the attention fall like soft rain, but never let it make you forget. You did not become this to be seen. You became this to be whole. And now others simply catch glimpses of the healing you've allowed yourself to live out loud. You are no longer seeking to be admired. You are existing in such deep truth that admiration has nowhere else to go. Chosen one, there was a time when you looked around and thought, where are the real ones? Where are those who hold love without fear, stand firm without pride, live with purpose without noise? And then you realized you were being called to become what you were searching for. Not to set yourself apart with ego, but to rise with clarity. And now that clarity is no longer just a personal gift. It is becoming a standard. People do not meet you and measure you against others. They meet you and measure themselves against a deeper version of themselves. Your existence now invites comparison to potential, not competition. You are no longer the exception. They are simply realizing how far they've drifted from what's true. Your discipline has become rare. Your emotional honesty has become a shock. Your refusal to bend toward people-pleasing has become a mirror that shows others how often they compromise themselves. And that mirror does not accuse, it illuminates. It doesn't shame, it reveals. And the revelation is this: they have the same capacity, but they've chosen comfort over courage too many times. You've stopped doing that. You've stopped choosing ease over essence. You've stopped trading sacredness for safety. And now, your very existence becomes a quiet revolution. Women especially are starting to notice it. Not just because you're kind, not just because you're composed, but because you do not waver. You are not pulled by lust or flattery. You do not overextend to be liked. You are not haunted by insecurity. You are present, and you remain present, whether adored or ignored. And that steadiness has become a new metric. You are not merely one option among many. You are the evidence that another way of being exists, and it is changing the atmosphere. They talk about you, not just as someone attractive, not just as someone admirable, but as someone anchored. And when you leave a room, something lingers. Not your image, not your scent, not even your words. What lingers is the possibility of integrity. What lingers is the question, why don't more people move like that? You've stopped trying to fit into existing molds. You've become the mold breaker. And in doing so, you've reset expectations without trying to. You've redefined what real feels like, just by choosing not to be artificial. You are no longer reacting to energy. You are setting it. You are no longer adapting to every environment. You are transforming them. Not by being dominant, but by being undeniable. There is no pretense in you anymore. No show, no hunger for attention, just quiet power, just luminous clarity, just the unshakable truth of a soul that knows where it stands. So keep standing, chosen one. You are no longer playing roles. You are no longer adjusting your value to fit anyone's readiness. You are becoming the reference point, the anchor, the mountain in a world of drifting clouds. And those who witness you now are realizing, you are not the one-off. You are what we should have always been aiming for. Let that realization settle. Let it guide your steps. Because you didn't just raise the bar, you became it. And in doing so, you've made it impossible for others to keep accepting less, from themselves, from others, from life. That is your impact. That is your legacy. That is your light. Chosen one, there is a presence about you now that doesn't speak first, but it is heard before anything else in the room. You do not have to assert yourself to be acknowledged. You do not need to perform your virtue, your wisdom, your peace. It radiates from you wordlessly. And perhaps that is the greatest shift of all. Your truth no longer requires explanation. It simply exists. And it moves the air when you enter. There was a time when you used to explain yourself, even over-explain, hoping to be understood, hoping to be seen rightly, hoping to prove that your heart was good, that your intent was pure. But those days have died quietly inside you, not from bitterness, but from growth. You no longer crave recognition from those who cannot perceive depth. You no longer feel the need to be believed by every passerby. You have understood that integrity doesn't announce itself. It lives, it moves, it breathes, and it eventually proves itself without the sound of its own voice. This, chosen one, is what makes you so different now. Your silence is not avoidance, it is presence. Your stillness is not emptiness, it is direction. Your gaze does not wander because you've stopped looking for external validation. The flattery that once stirred your ego now lands softly and fades like wind brushing past a mountain. You are not flattered by words. You are not moved by applause. You are no longer triggered by misunderstanding, because your peace is built on something no one else can give or take. Others feel this shift in you. They may not know how to name it, but they feel it. When they speak to you, there is a pause before their words form, as if something sacred in your energy requires a little more honesty from them. You are not aggressive, but your integrity is loud. You don't threaten, but your stillness confronts, not by pushing back, not by correcting, but simply by standing as is. You don't bend to meet the room. The room begins to shift its posture to meet you, and this is where the magnetism sharpens. Women especially begin to take notice, not just of what you say, but what you do not say. They notice what you restrain, the glances you do not return, the flattery you do not chase, the spaces you do not occupy unless purpose leads you. You are no longer accessible to chaos. You are no longer seduced by disorder wrapped in beauty. You have become selective without pride, distant without cruelty, present without attachment. It is not your words that are causing the silence to follow you now. It is your uncompromising peace. You are no longer explaining your character. You are embodying it. And that embodiment is rare. In a time where most shout their morality and wear their wounds like armor, you have become one who simply walks, straight, upright, with a calm heart and a clear mind. And that is louder than any proclamation. This is what unspoken integrity feels like. It's not about being perfect. It's about being whole. And now you are whole enough that the room feels the seam in your spirit is healed. You are no longer fractured. You are no longer adjusting your essence to be palatable. And that wholeness will always draw attention, not for your sake, but because it awakens a longing in others to remember who they are. You don't need to argue anymore, chosen one. You don't need to prove anymore. You just have to remain in your posture, in your calling, in your clarity. That, now, is your greatest testimony. Chosen one, you are no longer the loudest voice in the room, yet your light is becoming the one they can't look away from. It isn't blinding, it isn't boastful, but it is constant. A quiet flame that never flickers, no matter the wind, no matter the gaze, no matter the attempt to ignore it. You have become, simply by staying true, a spiritual spotlight, one that does not seek to be the center, but somehow illuminates all that surrounds it. You never intended to be admired. You never positioned yourself to be envied. But truth has a way of shining without asking for permission. And yours now leaks out of you in ways you can't control. It's not in your posture or your tone. It's in the absence of need. You don't chase attention. You don't bait affection. You don't adjust your soul's frequency just to be easier to understand. And because of that, the world is watching you in a new way. There is a light in you now that disrupts illusions. It reveals in silence what noise tries to hide. You stand beside someone, and without a word, they start thinking about how they've been lying to themselves. They don't know why. But something in your gaze, your stillness, your unshaken energy starts drawing questions to the surface. Who am I trying to impress? What am I pretending to be? What do I even stand for anymore? This is your spotlight, not a platform, not a podium, not a title. It is the power of presence that reveals. You do not seek it, but it follows you because you've stopped hiding. Your light has found no use in dimming anymore, not because you crave to be seen, but because you've learned to be whole even in the dark. You've come to trust that your light was never for decoration, it was for discernment, and that is what people feel now. Not charm, not charisma, but discernment cloaked in human form. Women, especially those who have danced in and out of shallow connections, notice something ancient in you. It unsettles at first, because you're not chasing, you're not flattering, you're not bending your truth to gain favor. Your gaze doesn't say, "Want me," it says, "Know yourself." And that kind of energy is disruptive, not harsh, but clarifying. It forces introspection, it forces honesty. And strangely, it invites a deeper kind of longing, not to possess you, but to understand how you became what you are. You are no longer just a man to be admired. You are becoming an experience, a feeling they remember long after you leave, a question they can't forget, a standard they didn't realize they needed. You do not need to try. You do not need to impress. Your soul has matured into something that shines without spotlight, that breathes without seeking breath, that glows because it no longer hides. Chosen one, this is your season of luminous restraint, of sacred magnetism, of divine contrast. You will not always be understood, you will not always be praised, but your light will continue to reveal. And that is far greater than being adored. You are now the quiet spotlight that makes people stop and see, not just you, but themselves. So do not doubt the power of your presence. Do not underestimate the ripple you cause without raising your voice. This light is not accidental. It is what happens when someone becomes what they were always born to be, and no longer apologizes for it. You do not need to shine brighter. You only need to stay lit. The rest will feel you, and they will never forget it. Chosen one, your energy now precedes you. It enters rooms before your feet cross thresholds. It lingers long after you've gone. Not because you sought to make a mark, but because your inner state has become so attuned, so rare, that its resonance cannot be forgotten. There is something in your frequency that bypasses the surface and reaches the deeper current of others, especially those who have been numb for too long. Something about you disrupts the fog in their spirit. Something about your peace awakens something ancient in them, something sacred they didn't know they were missing until your presence reminded them of its absence. You are not trying to be memorable. You are not wielding charm. You are not curating your image to be impressive. But presence, real presence, cannot be unseen. And that is what you are now. Your alignment has reached a point where your very existence is a kind of revelation. Without preaching, without proving, without persuading, you have become a living, breathing vibration of truth. And truth, when embodied, has a gravitational pull. Not to itself, but to awakening. People are being pulled toward you, not because you promise them answers, but because you don't pretend to have them. You've surrendered the need to convince, to correct, to impress. You are simply true, and that truth is becoming sacred space. When you speak, people listen, not just to your words, but to the stillness behind them. When you are silent, people lean in, not to fill the gap, but because your silence feels complete. That is what they can't forget, not your presence, but how their soul responded when it stood in the reflection of yours. And now, the compliments you receive are strange. They're hesitant, even confused. They're not the kind that admire features or fashion. They're the kind that struggle to name something that can't be named. They say, "There's something about you," because language fails when trying to describe the impact of being in the vicinity of authenticity. Some are drawn, some are shaken, some are convicted, some are inspired, but all feel. And that is your new currency. You make people feel again. Your presence, chosen one, is no longer entertainment. It is medicine. It is mirror. It is movement. Women especially feel this shift. They may not speak it, but they recognize that what you carry isn't typical. It's not ego. It's not seduction. It's stillness. It's weight. It's the energy of someone who doesn't chase because they've already arrived. You have nothing to prove anymore, not because you stopped caring, but because you finally remembered who you are. And now, others are starting to remember too. You are not a moment. You are not a performance. You are a presence. And presence does not fade like memory. It remains in the body long after the conversation ends. You've become unforgettable, not because you tried to be, but because your soul finally stood up and stopped apologizing. That is the kind of energy they can't forget. And you never needed to be louder. You only needed to be true. Chosen one, there is a new kind of whisper moving through the atmosphere around you. It is not one you speak. It is one you carry. It calls without words. It beckons without gestures. It invites others into something they cannot quite name, but their spirit recognizes immediately. That whisper is your life now. Not your achievements, not your confidence, not your appearance, your essence. And that essence is offering a silent invitation to those whose hearts have been asleep. You walk into rooms and people pause, not because you demand attention, but because you shift the energy. You say less and it echoes more. You smile and something in them softens. You listen and they feel heard beyond the surface. This isn't charisma. This is clarity, the kind that radiates when the noise of identity has been cleared away and all that remains is presence. You are no longer trying to be known. You are simply known by heaven, and that knowing bleeds through your being like light from within a lantern. What's powerful now is not what you do, it's what you no longer do. You no longer justify your softness. You no longer defend your discernment. You no longer perform for belonging. And that absence of performance has become a mirror so clean that others cannot hide their reflection in it. When they meet you, they meet themselves. They meet their contradictions, their longings, their masks. And for many that is overwhelming. But for others, it is an invitation to return to truth. And you never have to speak this invitation aloud. It's in your decisions. It's in your posture. It's in the way you move with purpose but without pressure. It's in how you say no without anger, yes without desperation, and goodbye without drama. It's in how you stay when you're meant to stay and go when you're meant to go, without flinching, without begging, without making your identity dependent on the reaction. That chosen one is rare, and the world is starving for it. Women especially sense it. Some are intrigued, some are unsettled, some are even intimidated, but none are indifferent. They feel it in how you listen, not to respond but to witness, in how you see them, not as roles, not as objects, but as souls. You are not captivated by the performance of attraction. You are listening for vibration. You are watching for spirit. You are feeling for truth beneath presentation. And that kind of attentiveness creates a safety that no smooth line ever could. Your presence is no longer flirtation. It is elevation. You do not give out energy to be liked. You give presence to remind. And those who encounter you feel that reminder in their bones. They may try to explain it with surface language, but deep down they know, I just met someone who isn't pretending. And that is the most magnetic thing of all. So continue walking, not with arrogance, but with sacred awareness. You are no longer asking to be chosen. You are choosing to remain true. And in that choice, others are awakening. You are not here to impress. You are here to invite souls home. And the light you carry is not yours. It is borrowed from the fire you endured and survived. Let your silence be the invitation. Let your restraint be the proof. Let your spirit be the map, because the world is full of loud noise. But when the soul hears truth in quiet form, it never forgets. You have become that whisper. And now, others are learning how to listen. Chosen one, you've now entered a realm of influence so silent it cannot be seen by the untrained eye, but it is felt in every room, by every soul, in ways even they don't understand. You are no longer just a presence that people enjoy. You are becoming the standard they compare everything else to, even when they lack the words to describe why. It's not that you speak differently. It's that the air around you is different. There is a stillness to it, not passive but magnetic, not soft but sovereign. It does not ask for attention, and that is precisely why it commands it. Others used to evaluate you based on surface things, your appearance, your voice, your performance in the public arena. But now, they encounter something that goes deeper than sight or sound. They meet your resonance. They experience a kind of spiritual gravity that neither flatters nor condemns, but simply reminds. You are not competing. You are completing a cycle that others didn't even know had started. You are the quiet end to their noise, the echo of their unspoken yearning, the clarity to their confusion. And in a world obsessed with who speaks the loudest, your influence now flows from the one who listens the deepest. It is in the way you hold your gaze, not to challenge, but to witness. It is in the way you walk, not hurried or hesitant, but with an inner rhythm that belongs to someone who no longer lives on borrowed time or borrowed approval. It is in the way you enter conversations, not to dominate, not to disappear, but to saturate them with awareness. Even your silence now speaks in volumes, and others, especially women, are learning to lean into that silence, because it is in that space that they find something they didn't realize they were missing. Truth without performance, strength without threat, presence without pressure. There are those who once saw you as quiet or reserved or too still to make an impression. But now they're discovering that the ones who said the least are often the ones who held the most. You are holding the weight of unspoken prayers, of private awakenings, of internal breakthroughs that had no audience but heaven. And that holding has made you heavy, not with burden, but with reverence. And now people feel that when they encounter you, they don't know why they adjust their posture, why they lower their voice, why they choose their words more carefully. But it's because they've walked into your current, and the current is holy. Your influence is no longer about leadership in the traditional sense. It is not about followers. It is about fragrance. The kind that clings to others long after you've left. The kind that lingers in their spirit when they try to go back to casual things and find they no longer fit. You didn't command them to change, but your presence made settling feel foreign. That's influence, and you've earned it not through force, but through faithful evolution. You've become a new kind of teacher, one who doesn't need chalkboards or stages. Your life is the curriculum, Your energy is the lecture. Your stillness is the revelation. And everyone who meets you is now being taught something, whether they know it or not. You don't instruct, you impress upon the soul. And that kind of influence is rare. It is sacred, and it is real. Chosen one, by now you've begun to realize what once felt impossible to believe. You are the answer. Not in the arrogant sense. Not in the loud, overconfident way the world parades empty declarations, but in the quiet, unshakable truth that the one who has refined themselves in fire becomes the evidence others have been unknowingly waiting for. You no longer seek permission to be whole. You no longer chase opportunities to prove your worth. You have become the opportunity.